The northern territories of Montana held secrets the rest of America would never understand. Here in the shadow of glacier-carved peaks and forests, so dense sunlight barely touched the ground, werewolves thrived beneath the surface of ordinary life. They had their own laws, their own rulers, their own wars that humans would mistake for natural disasters if they noticed at all. Marcus Blackwood woke at 5:47 in the morning, same as he had for 2,557 days. 7 years since Sarah died. Not that he counted. The alarm sat dark and silent. His body no longer needed external prompts to drag him from sleep into another day of functioning without living. The cot in his study had become his bed 3 days after the funeral. The actual bedroom remained untouched. Her robe still hung on the bathroom door. He stood in the doorway sometimes and stared at the perfectly made bed, trying to remember what it felt like to want to be in there. The memory remained frustratingly out of reach. 40 years old, and his body protested the cold more than it used to. The mirror showed a man weathered by more than time. Gray threaded through dark brown hair, lines bracketed storm gray eyes, a jaw that hadn't softened with age, just hardened further. He looked 50. The frozen king, they called him. Better that than the broken alpha. He shaved with the straight razor his father had given him 30 years ago, each stroke methodical. Control the small things. Don't think about the big picture, because the big picture was a gaping void where his mate used to be. 6:15 brought Henrik's knock. 3 firm raps paused one more. His beta never deviated. Marcus appreciated consistency. It was the only thing that felt safe anymore. Henrik Volkov entered with 2 mugs of coffee, 58 years old, and built like a bear that remained dangerous. Gray hair in a ponytail, scars on his forearms, eyes that missed nothing. No pleasantries. They'd stopped bothering with good mornings years ago. The briefing covered 3 topics. Southern border disputes. Malcolm Thornridge requesting audience about tax reforms. Then Henrik paused, weighing something. December 3rd, anniversary of Sarah's funeral. Marcus's response came flat. He was aware of the date. What was the briefing schedule Henrik knew better than to push? They reviewed the day's agenda. Territory patrol, council meetings, more meetings, paperwork until 11. 6 hours of sleep, then repeat, every day, forever. The routine was armor against feeling. The palace halls stretched empty at dawn. Staff knew better than to cross his path. The frozen king wanted solitude, and he got what he wanted. Blackwood Palace rose from the mountainside like a fortress, pretending to be a homestone and timber construction housing 237 people. Marcus knew the exact number but couldn't name most of them anymore. Naming required caring. The valley spread below the North Tower. Winter dawn painting snow-covered peaks rose in gold. Sarah used to stand here with him. The memory surfaced and he crushed it immediately. Don't remember. Memory was a trap. 8:30 brought council meeting. 12 members in heavy oak chairs, each bearing family crests. Marcus arrived precisely on time and waved them down. No pleasantries. Henrik distributed folders. The agenda covered standard governance, territory taxes, resource allocation, security protocols. Lord Harrington raised the rogue problem. 5 attacks in 3 months. Patterns suggested organization. Perhaps diplomatic approach. Marcus cut through with the cold efficiency. Rogues had abandoned pack law. They preyed on the weak. Henrik would take Battalion 3 and eliminate the threat. No survivors, no negotiations. Malcolm Thornridge spoke into the silence, smooth and confident. 37 years old, handsome, politically ambitious. Marcus's childhood friend turned into something Marcus barely recognized. The AlphaKing's decisive action was admirable, Malcolm said. But perhaps they should consider optics. Humans grew suspicious of military operations. Marcus's response brooked no argument. Humans saw what wolves allowed them to see. Pack safety superseded human comfort. Henrik would execute the order. Next topic, Malcolm lingered after the meeting, catching Marcus alone. Could he speak as friend? Not Lord Marcus's correction came cold. They weren't friends anymore. They were king and subject. Whatever Malcolm had to say could be said in that capacity. The concern in Malcolm's eyes looked genuine. Marcus was the strongest alpha in generations, but strength without connection made people uneasy. The council whispered. Some said grief had broken something fundamental. Marcus interrupted with dangerous edge. They wanted a king. He gave them one. If they wanted warmth, they could light a fire. Malcolm tried another angle, voice dropping. Sarah wouldn't have wanted this. She'd have wanted Marcus to heal, to live again, to be more than just competent administrator. The snap happened fast. Marcus's voice went lethal. Malcolm would never speak Sarah's name. Ever. Was that clear? Malcolm backed off, hands raised. Crystal clear, forgiveness requested. Marcus turned and left without responding. The observation tower called to him. He climbed stairs and stared at his kingdom. Thousands of square miles, tens of thousands of wolves under his protection. His father's words echoed across decades. A king isn't a man, he's a symbol. Symbols don't get to feel. He'd laughed then. Now he understood. When Sarah died taking their unborn son with her, Marcus had two choices: crumble or lock everything away. He'd chosen duty over devastation, function over feeling. Somewhere in 2,557 days, he'd forgotten he used to be something else. The radio crackled. Henrik's urgent voice. Emergency. Silverbrook Village unresponsive. Last transmission mentioned attack. Heavy casualties. Marcus responded immediately. Mobilize patrol. He was going personally. Henrik protested. Send a team. Marcus's tone allowed no argument. His people were dying. He went. Silverbrook. Small settlement. Marcus pulled details from memory like database query. 47 families. Population 186. Good people his mind supplied, then corrected. Numbers. They were numbers. 12 riders assembled within minutes. Battalion 3. Warriors who'd served 15 to 20 years each. They mounted without questions. When the AlphaKing said move, you moved. The ride took 3 hours through Montana wilderness in December. Temperature 8 below zero. Henrik tried conversation, pushing in the way only old friends dared. Did Marcus remember Silverbrook? The people Marcus recited facts. 47 families, 186 population. Henrik persisted. The settlement alpha was Thomas Garrett. His mate Maria ran the schoolhouse. 3 children. Riley Cole Quinn. Thomas had saved Henrik's life at Eagle Pass. Marcus absorbed information without emotion. He hadn't known that. Henrik's observation cut deep. Marcus never asked anymore, never learned personal details, just ruled from distance, managing numbers instead of lives. The explanation came careful. If he knew them, knew their children's names and dreams, then when they died, it hurt. And hurt compromised judgment. Distance was protective. Henrik's response came quiet, almost sad. That wasn't a king speaking. That was a scared man hiding behind a crown. Marcus let anger flash before bearing it. Then it was fortunate he was both. They rode on. Only hooves on frozen ground and wind through pines accompanied them. Marcus retreated into numbness, thinking about logistics instead of people they were riding to save, or more likely find dead. They smelled death before seeing it, blood and smoke and fear. Henrik raised his fist. The patrol stopped in perfect formation. Marcus issued orders with cold efficiency. Standard search pattern. Watch for survivors and ambush. Capture one rogue alive if possible. Silverbrook appeared through trees like vision of hell. 47 homes reduced to ash and broken timber. Bodies scattered, frozen in final moments. Some had shifted mid-attack. Others died human, caught before they could defend themselves. Marcus walked through destruction with detached focus. His mind categorized automatically. Entry points, 3 simultaneous breaches. Coordinated timing suggested military training. Kill pattern, high-value targets eliminated first. Thomas Garrett's body near center clearly died fighting. Then civilians. Systematic extermination. Time of attack 6 to 8 hours ago based on blood coagulation. Attacker numbers 50 to 60 wolves, all rogues. But rogues didn't organize like this. This was military assault. Henrik knelt beside claw marks. These weren't random rogues. Attack patterns showed tactical coordination. Someone trained them, turned them into army. Marcus's jaw tightened. This was the 3rd frontier settlement in 6 months with identical patterns. Someone was testing defenses or targeting specific settlements. But why? Then he heard it. Faint, almost missed beneath the wind. A child's whimper. Marcus followed alone. Something about this feeling, personal, led to House 34, partially collapsed. Basement door visible under debris. He shifted rubble aside with bare hands, ignoring splinters and cold. Someone was alive down there. He pulled the door open. Darkness below. His eyes adjusted quickly. 3 children huddled under single torn blanket, covered in soot and dried blood. The oldest, maybe 6, had arms wrapped around 2 smaller children, ash blonde hair matted with gore, sky blue eyes that had seen too much. When she saw Marcus, she growled, 6-year-old positioning herself between her siblings and an AlphaKing. Something in Marcus cracked. This wasn't a number. This was a child who'd watched her world end, kept siblings alive through freezing night, and still chose to fight. He crouched slowly, voice gentler than it had been in 7 years. He wasn't here to hurt them. He was Marcus Blackwood, AlphaKing. They were safe now. The girl's response cut through every defense. Monsters had come, killed everyone. Mama said hide. They'd hidden. Everyone else was gone. Marcus felt each word like physical blow. He studied her. Riley, Thomas Garrett's daughter, and the others. Cole, 4 years old, Quinn barely 2. All 3 bore shifter scent markers. They'd grow to be wolves, currently vulnerable, defenseless. The necessary question. Were there others? Riley shook her head. One tear tracked down her dirty cheek. Just them. The implications crystallized. 3 orphans. No family. Standard protocol dictated foster placement. Separate them across different families. Clean, efficient, exactly what should happen. Marcus looked at Riley's fierce, protective stance, at Cole's quiet terror, at Quinn's fragile innocence, and made a decision that had nothing to do with protocol. They should come with him. All 3, he'd take them somewhere warm and safe. Riley studied his extended hand, weighing limited options. Finally, her small, frozen fingers wrapped around his. Okay. But they stayed together, always together. Marcus's promise carried alpha weight. Always. They stayed together. He gathered all 3. Riley insisted on walking despite frozen feet. Cole in one arm, Quinn in the other, wrapped them in his fur-lined coat. The patrol stared in undisguised shock at their AlphaKing carrying 3 filthy, traumatized children like precious cargo. Henrik cleared his throat diplomatically. Perhaps fine placement at the next settlement, proper channels for orphans. Marcus's response came flat and absolute. They were coming with him. To the palace. Anyone who questioned it could challenge him directly. No one challenged. Henrik bowed acknowledgement, though confusion remained clear. In 25 years of service, he'd never seen Marcus make impulsive decision. They rode north. Marcus held all 3 on his horse. Quinn fell asleep against his chest. Cole's trembling stopped. Riley remained alert but gradually leaned into his warmth. Riley's small voice broke the silence. Why was he doing this? They were nobody. Marcus chose honesty, because when he'd seen her protecting siblings despite terror and cold, he'd recognized courage most warriors never showed. And because no child should watch their world burn and think they were alone. Riley studied him. Something clicked. Thank you for saving us. Marcus felt warmth for the first time in 2,557 days. Blackwood Palace appeared as afternoon light faded. Staff scrambled. Ingrid Morrison, head housekeeper for 40 years, took one look and seized control. The Barons needed baths, food, and sleep. And Marcus needed to explain why he'd brought home 3 strays. Marcus's correction came quiet but firm. They weren't strays. They were survivors under his protection. Ingrid's expression softened. She'd raised Marcus, knew what this meant. As you say, my lord, she'd see them cared for. Hours blurred. Staff mobilized, baths heated, clothing located. Riley was cleaned and dressed in oversized wool dress. Cole received warm clothes and soup. Quinn cried when separated for her bath until assured siblings were nearby. By evening, all 3 were in guest suite adjacent to Marcus's wing. 3 beds, but they dragged them together, seeking comfort in proximity. Ingrid had found old toys from Marcus's childhood. Marcus stood in the doorway watching them settle. Riley's voice came small. Would he be here in the morning? His promise came firm. He would be here. They were safe. Riley whispered that Mama used to say that, but monsters came anyway. Marcus knelt beside the bed. He couldn't promise bad things would never happen, but he could promise to do everything in his power to protect them. His word as king and as the man who brought them home. Riley studied him with old soul eyes. Okay, she believed him. She laid down, arms around siblings. Within minutes, all three were asleep. Marcus remained kneeling, watching them breathe, feeling the weight of the promise he'd made. What had he done? He was a king with kingdom to run. Knew strategy and combat, not how to care for children. But looking at Astrid's small hand around Freya's, at Eric's troubled expression, even in sleep, he knew he couldn't have made any other choice. The council assembled that night, expressions ranging from confusion to disapproval. Marcus entered the war room 3 hours late, refusing to leave children until they slept. Malcolm stood. An explanation would be appreciated. Marcus's response came blunt. 3 orphan children survived Silverbrook. He brought them for protection. They were staying. Questions, explosion of voices, everyone talking at once. Lord Harrington protesting procedure, Vivian Cross questioning logistics, Robert Kane worried about precedent. Marcus let them talk for exactly 2 minutes, then raised one hand. Silence fell immediately. Lord Harrington tried rational approach. Proper protocols existed. Foster care systems. Why bring them to the royal palace? Marcus's answer was cold. Those children had survived impossible circumstances. The oldest had protected siblings through freezing night of terror. They deserved the best protection available. He could provide it. Therefore he would. Malcolm shifted tactics, voice concerned. This wasn't about the children's welfare. But Marcus was AlphaKing. His responsibility extended to entire territory, not 3 random orphans. The optics suggested emotional compromise. The silence carried dangerous weight. Marcus stood slowly, walking to face Malcolm directly. Malcolm should choose his next words carefully. Suggesting the AlphaKing was emotionally compromised bordered on challenge for throne. Malcolm held ground, just concern from old friend. Marcus had lost mate and unborn son, was taking in orphans about their welfare or about filling the void. The punch happened before conscious thought. Marcus's fist connected with Malcolm's jaw with enough force to send him sprawling. Guards moved. Henrik waved them back. Marcus stood over Malcolm, alpha power radiating. Malcolm would never mention Sarah or Alexander again. These children had watched parents die, survived through 6-year-olds' courage. They deserved protection without motivations questioned by political opportunists. Malcolm wiped blood from split lip. Understood. Apologies. Marcus returned to his seat. Riley, Cole, and Quinn were under royal protection. They'd live in palace, receive education, training, resources. Anyone who had problem with that could challenge him for throne. Otherwise, sit down and accept it. No one moved. Vivian Cross suggested compromise. Make it official. Draft royal wardship papers. Formalize arrangement. Marcus nodded. Good. Vivian would draft documents. Henrik would assign guards. Ingrid would prepare permanent rooms. The council would adjust. Meeting adjourned. Only Henrik remained, expression mixing exasperation with something like pride. Marcus had certainly made his position clear. Also possibly started political crisis. Marcus examined bruised knuckles. Let Malcolm remember. Let the entire council remember. Henrik's question cut deeper. Was Malcolm right, though, about Marcus's motivations? The honest answer required self-examination. Both, probably. Yes, he saw his lost son in them, but that didn't make the choice wrong. They needed protection. He could provide it. Henrik accepted that with nod, then departed to handle logistics. Alone, Marcus sat processing what he'd committed to. 3 children, permanent residence. His responsibility now. He allowed himself one moment of vulnerability. Yes, Malcolm was partially right. Taking them in was about his unresolved grief. But it was also about 3 specific children who'd survived impossible odds and deserved someone who would fight for them. Could he be that person, the frozen king, who'd shut down for 7 years? He didn't know, but he was going to try. 3 months transformed the palace. Marcus woke at 6 instead of 5:47, checking the monitor in the children's suite first thing. They still slept in one bed despite 3 being available. Some battles weren't worth fighting. Breakfast happened at 6:30, real breakfast with other people. Riley sat reading whatever book Ingrid found. Cole to his left, usually silent but present. Quinn in high chair making cheerful destruction of oatmeal. Henrik joined most mornings, his presence easing Marcus's awkwardness navigating family meals. The attempts at conversation were clumsy. Riley offered more grace than he deserved in answering questions about studies with patience. Cole occasionally contributed single words. Quinn mostly threw food at kitchen dogs and giggled. The morning routine expanded to include checking on children before patrol, just quick stop confirming everyone was dressed. Riley always ready early bed made with military precision. Cole still getting dressed, moving with careful deliberation. Quinn required Ingrid's help with buttons and braids. 8 o'clock brought the ritual Marcus had come to dread and cherish. Bedtime stories. He discovered children's books in the library, dusty volumes from when Blackwood children actually lived here. His reading needed work. Riley had suggested voices. Different characters should sound different. Marcus had attempted a dragon voice. The result was catastrophic and hilarious. All 3 children dissolved into giggles. Now it was expected. His dragon still sounded asthmatic. His princess had New Jersey accent. His knight sounded like Henrik. Tonight's story involved young wolf learning to hunt. Marcus settled into chair, Quinn climbing into his lap. Riley and Cole flanked him. The reading began with his attempt at wise mentor wolf, deep and gravelly and probably embarrassing. But Riley smiled and corrected mispronunciations. Halfway through, Quinn fell asleep against his chest. Marcus continued, quietly aware of the warm weight. When had he last held someone like this, Sarah? 7 years ago, the thought surfaced without crushing pain, just gentle melancholy. Riley's question interrupted. Would he keep reading even when they got older? Marcus marked his place. He'd keep reading as long as they wanted. If they hit 30 and still wanted bedtime stories, he'd accommodate. Probably with better voices by then. Maybe. Cole spoke up with rare humor. The voices were fine as they were. Getting better would ruin entertainment value. Marcus glanced at the boy, caught the slight smile. Humor, progress, small victories. The story concluded. Time for bed. Riley hesitated before lying down, worrying her lower lip. Did Marcus think they were getting in the way? She'd heard Lord Harrington say the AlphaKing had better things to do than play father to orphans. Marcus felt anger flash. Harrington had said that where Riley could hear, the response came firm. They weren't in the way. They were exactly where they belonged. Anyone who suggested otherwise could answer to him. Riley's shoulders relaxed. She just worried he'd realize this was too much work, that they weren't worth the effort. Marcus waited until she looked at him. They were absolutely worth the effort. Every minute. Something in Riley's expression shifted, not quite trust yet, but belief that maybe he meant it. Good night, Marcus. He carried Quinn to bed, tucking her in with the stuffed wolf she'd claimed. Stood in doorway watching 3 small chests rise and fall. His responsibility. His family, though the word still felt too big. Henrik waited in hallway. The observation came casual but weighted. Marcus had just spent an hour doing voices for children's story. The Frozen King wouldn't recognize himself. Marcus swirled whiskey, considering. The Frozen King had been survival mechanism. Maybe not necessary anymore. Maybe 3 children had given him permission to stop surviving and start living. Henrik's question cut to core. How was Marcus actually doing, not the king? The man. The honest answer required vulnerability. It was hard. Excruciating some days. Every time Riley smiled, every time Cole spoke, every time Quinn fell asleep in his arms, his heart cracked open more. And hearts that opened could break. But the pain of opening felt better than numbness of staying closed. Living hurt, but not living hurt worse. These children had taught him that distinction. Henrik raised his glass. Sarah would be proud. Marcus drank, letting burn distract from emotion. He hoped so, because most days he had no idea what he was doing, just showing up and trying. Henrik's reassurance came with wisdom of experience. That was parenting. Nobody knew what they were doing, just kept showing up. The first 3 months established patterns. By the 2-year mark, those patterns became unbreakable routines. At the 5-year milestone, Riley now 11, Cole 9, Quinn 7, Marcus barely recognized the Frozen King he'd been. Riley's hypervigilance slowly decreased but never disappeared. She slept with knife under pillow. Marcus had found it during room check and chosen not to confiscate the weapon. Riley needed that sense of control. The incident with Palace Guard taught everyone to announce presence loudly. The young warrior had startled Riley in hallway. She'd disarmed him and had knife at throat before conscious thought engaged. Marcus had arrived to find his 7-year-old holding trained warrior at knife point. The situation required careful handling. He knelt to Riley's level voice, calm. The guard startled her. Her response was instinctive, but they needed way for her to feel safe without attacking people. Riley released him immediately, knife clattering. Apologies tumbled between sobs. Was Marcus going to send them away? Proof they were too broken, Marcus pulled her into hug. They weren't going anywhere, this was home. But new protocol, everyone approaching would announce themselves. Could Riley work with that? Riley nodded against his chest. The guard accepted, stammered apology. Henrik implemented protocol immediately. Life continued. Cole's selective mutism proved more challenging. The boy spoke to Riley and Quinn without issue, occasionally to Marcus and Henrik. But tutors received only silence. Marcus observed the pattern. Cole spoke when comfortable, clammed up when pressured, so he stopped forcing. Instead, he took Cole to engineering workshops. No pressure to talk, just observation. 3 weeks in, Cole pointed at blueprint and whispered that support beam was positioned incorrectly. How had he spotted it? Cole's explanation came quiet but detailed. Load distribution, weight calculations. Current design would collapse. He'd redesigned it mentally. Marcus provided paper. Cole drew. The design was brilliant. Marcus implemented it immediately and adjusted Cole's education plan. This child had genius-level spatial reasoning. Intelligence didn't require verbal expression. The breakthrough shifted their relationship. Cole began seeking Marcus out, sharing observations. Still quiet, but no longer completely silent. Progress measured in syllables. Quinn's night terrors woke the entire wing regularly. She'd wake screaming about monsters with red eyes. The details were remarkably consistent. Something about rogues had imprinted on her 2-year-old mind. Marcus started sleeping in chair in their room. First night was accident. Waking at 3 a.m. to Quinn's screams, he'd been right there. The terrors subsided faster. Quinn saw him and reached out. Monsters gone. He was there. She was safe. Promise always. Next night, he intentionally stayed. Quinn woke once, saw him in chair, went back to sleep. The terrors decreased. 6 weeks before, Quinn could make it through most nights undisturbed. Henrik found him one morning stiff from sleeping in chair. Marcus was going to destroy his back. Could return to own bed. Marcus stretched, feeling 41 years in protesting spine. Maybe. But Quinn still had occasional bad nights. Easier to be nearby. Henrik's expression shifted to concern. Marcus was organizing entire life around 3 children. What happened to boundaries? The response came automatic. Boundaries were for people who could afford distance. These children needed him present, so he stayed present. Henrik let it drop, but Marcus saw the worry. His beta thought he was getting too attached, setting himself up for heartbreak. Probably right, Marcus chose attachment anyway. The years blurred. Riley reached 8 with warrior's intensity and child's vulnerability. Cole turned 6, quiet but increasingly comfortable. Quinn hit 4 with energy to power small city and no sense of self-preservation. The council noticed Malcolm made pointed comments about distraction. Lord Harrington suggested professional caretakers. Vivian Cross worried about succession planning. Marcus listened with patience of someone who didn't care about their opinions. Riley, Cole, and Quinn were thriving. That validated every choice. Training began when Riley turned 8. Marcus watched her practice with wooden swords, self-taught movements, showing instinct but no technique. He approached Garrett Stone, retired Special Forces. Trained 3 children, youngest only 4, to defend themselves without traumatizing them. Possible Garrett studied Marcus with assessing gaze. Training trauma survivors required delicate balance. He'd attempt it with supervision. First session was careful. Garrett working with Riley on basic stances. Riley attacked the lesson with fierce determination, absorbing corrections, drilling movements. She approached combat training like drowning people approached air. Garrett noted the intensity with concern. She fought like she expected to need these skills imminently. Marcus confirmed. Riley lived with constant awareness that safety was temporary. Training gave her control. Let her learn. Cole's training took different form. He lacked Riley's aggressive instinct. Garrett quickly realized the boy's strength lay in observation. During demonstrations, Cole would point out vulnerabilities, suggest strategies, see 3 moves ahead. Garrett pulled Marcus aside after 2 weeks. Cole wouldn't be frontline fighter, but his tactical mind was extraordinary. Perhaps strategy training. Marcus agreed, adjusting curriculum. Cole flourished, absorbing military theory with quiet intensity. Different strengths, equally valuable. Quinn at 4 was chaos incarnate. She shifted for first time at 3.5 white wolf form, peering during tantrum. Youngest shifter Garrett had ever seen. Rare bloodline. The white wolf caused immediate ripples. White wolves appeared once every 3 generations, always associated with change, prophecy, power. Quinn had shifted back with no awareness of significance, just excited she could finally be wolf. Marcus researched extensively that night. Every white wolf in recorded history was catalyst for major change. Sometimes positive, sometimes destructive, always significant. The prophecy he discovered was ancient, fragmented, but core message remained consistent. When winter's children rise from ash, when white wolf runs, kingdom will either fall or be reborn. 3 children surviving winter massacre. White wolf, rising from ash. The parallels were impossible to ignore. Henrik agreed correlation seemed more than coincidental. If prophecy was known to others, someone might have targeted Silverbrook because of these children, or might target them now. Marcus made decision immediately. They wouldn't tell the children about prophecies or destinies. Let them be children. Train them to be strong. But don't burden them with knowledge that ancient texts suggested their existence might reshape kingdom. 5 years accumulated into established patterns. Riley at 12 fought with controlled fury. Cole at 10 orchestrated complex strategies. Quinn at 8 shifted with casual ease most adults couldn't match. Marcus at 45 felt simultaneously older and more alive. The children had given him purpose beyond duty, had dragged him from frozen wasteland into something resembling life. Henrik's investigation into Malcolm Thornridge consumed 3 months of careful surveillance. The findings arrived in manila folder Marcus opened alone at midnight. The evidence was circumstantial, but damning. Shell corporations traced to Thornridge Holdings, payments to rogue facilitators before Silverbrook, communications with persons unknown. Malcolm had been involved. The question was why. The prophecy provided possible answer. If Malcolm knew about Winter's children, eliminating potential catalysts made cold strategic sense. Marcus sat with folder for hours. His friend, his childhood companion. That person had ordered deaths of 47 families to eliminate 3 children who might challenge power structures. The rage built slowly from cold anger into white-hot fury. He wanted to storm Malcolm's estate immediately, drag him before council and execute him for treason. But rage-driven action was poor strategy. Malcolm had covered tracks expertly. Moving without ironclad evidence would fracture territory into civil war. Marcus forced tactical thinking. Malcolm believed he'd eliminated prophecy children 5 years ago. Discovering they'd survived would change calculations. Either attempt another assassination or shift strategy. Either way, forewarned meant prepared. The decision formed with cold clarity. Increase security without explaining why. Continue monitoring Malcolm, build legal case slowly. When moment came, move publicly and legally. And don't tell the children. Not yet. They carried enough weight. Morning brought breakfast as scheduled. Marcus arrived at 6:30, folder locked in safe expression, neutral. Riley looked up from book. Cole pushed eggs in geometric patterns. Quinn attempted spoon balancing. Normal, safe. Marcus poured coffee and tried to match their energy, though mine remained fixed on evidence. Riley's voice interrupted dark thoughts. Could they train with real weapons soon instead of wooden practice swords? She'd turned 8 last month. Marcus considered weighing safety against preparedness. Garrett would assess readiness. If approved, start with dulled practice blades. Progress based on demonstrated skill. Riley's smile transformed her face. Thank you, she wouldn't let him down. Marcus felt heart clench. This child who'd survived massacre, who'd learned to fight because helplessness terrified her, deserved better than world where 8-year-olds needed combat training. But the world was what it was. Preparing her meant giving her tools, even if doing so acknowledged monsters existed in sometimes targeted children. Cole spoke up. He'd been studying defensive architecture. Palace Eastern Wall had vulnerabilities. Could he present analysis to Henrik? Marcus's eyebrows rose. Cole was 7, but he'd redesigned security grid at 6. Permission came with gentle caveat, of course. But maybe take time for activities beyond military strategy. Play with children his age. Cole's expression suggested Marcus had suggested interpretive dance. Other children were loud and unpredictable. He preferred books and blueprints. Marcus backtracked. Not problematic. If security architecture made him happy, encourage intellectual curiosity. Quinn interrupted to announce successful 5-second spoon balance. New record. Everyone should celebrate. They dutifully celebrated. Marcus and Riley applauding, Cole offering statistical analysis, Quinn basking in attention. Moments like this reminded Marcus why he'd made these choices. 3 children creating joy from breakfast chaos, worth protecting at any cost. 3 weeks later, Riley solved the mystery herself. The girl was brilliant, observant, noticed everything. His increased security measures, his tension whenever Malcolm's name arose, hushed conferences that stopped when children approached. She cornered him in study after dinner, Cole and Quinn distracted. Her expression carried determination he recognized from training. She wanted answers. The question came direct. What were Marcus and Henrik hiding? Something was wrong, something involving them. She deserved to know. Marcus considered denying it, but Riley stood before him with fierce courage, and lying felt like betrayal. The admission came carefully. They discovered information about Silverbrook, evidence suggesting it wasn't random. Someone organized it, targeted specific people, including her family. Riley's face went still. Who? Marcus hesitated. Naming Malcolm without concrete proof could trigger serious consequences. But Riley deserved truth. They suspected Malcolm Thornridge, had circumstantial evidence connecting him, but not enough for formal charges. We're investigating to build stronger case. Riley absorbed this with visible control. Her hands clenched. Voice emerged strained. Why would Malcolm target their village, target her family specifically? This required explaining prophecy. Marcus pulled ancient text from desk. The words felt heavy reading aloud. Winter's children, white wolf, kingdom falling or being reborn. Riley listened without interruption. When Marcus finished, silence stretched. Finally, she spoke, voice flat. So their parents died because of them. Because old stories suggested they might matter someday. Because Malcolm was afraid. Marcus moved around the desk, kneeling to her level. Not because of them, because Malcolm made terrible, evil choice. The responsibility was entirely his. Riley's eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. But if they hadn't existed, if Quinn hadn't been White Wolf, those people would be alive. Mama and Papa would be alive. The mathematics were simple. Marcus gripped her shoulders, forcing eye contact. The mathematics were irrelevant. Existing wasn't crime. Being born White Wolf wasn't crime. Malcolm's paranoid fear was crime. His willingness to murder 47 families was crime. She didn't get to claim responsibility for his evil choices. The tears fell. Riley's control shattered 5 years of processing trauma, overwhelming her. She collapsed against Marcus, sobs racking her frame. She missed them. Mama and Papa. Hated that someone took it deliberately. Marcus held her, let her cry, offered comfort through presence. He knew. Missing people was permanent. Grief never disappeared, just became something you learned to carry. But she wasn't alone carrying it. The breakdown lasted 20 minutes. When Riley pulled back, face blotchy and eyes swollen, she looked simultaneously younger and older. Her next question came with new edge. What were they going to do about Malcolm? Could they prove his guilt? Marcus chose honesty. They were working on building case strong enough to move publicly. But it took time. Patience. Couldn't risk civil war by acting prematurely. Riley wiped her eyes, jaw setting. She could help. Could watch Malcolm. Gather evidence. Do whatever needed. The refusal came immediate. Absolutely not. She was 12. Investigating dangerous enemies was not appropriate. She'd continue training, continue living. Leave Malcolm to adults. Riley's glare could melt steel. She wasn't helpless, child. Had been training 5 years. Could fight, strategize, observe. Why shouldn't she help? Because Marcus refused to add her to list of people he'd lost? Because Malcolm was dangerous. Because children deserve to be children. Because he said so. The argument continued. Eventually, Riley stormed out, slamming door. Marcus let her go, slumping with exhaustion. Henrik appeared within minutes. She knew Marcus confirmed, figured it out, demanded answers, received them. Now processing with grief and fury. Henrik's assessment was pragmatic. She was stubborn, intelligent, motivated. Of course she'd try to help. Question was whether to guide that impulse or fight it uselessly. Marcus understood logic but resisted viscerally. She was 12. Still his responsibility to protect. Henrik sat across from him. Marcus couldn't protect them forever. Couldn't keep them children. Eventually they'd face adult dangers. Better to guide than forbid. The argument had merit Marcus didn't want to acknowledge. But Riley now knew someone murdered her parents deliberately. The question was when to deliver full truth and how to frame it without adding unbearable weight. Marcus made decision he immediately regretted. Fine. Riley could help. Limited supervised capacity. Information gathering only. Nothing putting her in direct contact with Malcolm. And if at any point she was at risk, all involvement ended. Henrik nodded approval. Would establish parameters. Give productive outlet without exposing to danger. Marcus hoped so, because if anything happened to her, because he'd allowed this, he'd never forgive himself. The years continued accumulating. Riley's involvement in an investigation remained limited but meaningful. She observed Malcolm at public events, noted inconsistencies in his public statements, provided insights that only someone with personal stakes could identify. Cole contributed technical expertise, analyzed communication patterns, built probability models of Malcolm's behavior. His genius-level intelligence applied to bringing down their parents' murderer. Quinn remained mostly uninvolved, too young, too impulsive, but she provided moral support, reminded them all why this mattered. 3 orphans who'd survived and deserved justice. By the time Riley turned 21, they'd built comprehensive case against Malcolm. Financial records, communication intercepts, testimony from recovered rogues in protective custody, pattern analysis of attacks. Not enough for immediate execution, enough to justify serious investigation. But Malcolm moved first. 10 years changed everything. Riley at 21 commanded Palace Guard with authority that made seasoned warriors twice her age defer to her judgment. Captain's insignia on her shoulder. She'd earned respect through hundreds of training hours and genuine care for every soldier. Cole at 19 managed security systems so complex even Henrik struggled to follow the architecture. Chief strategist at age when most pack members were still learning basics. Quinn at 17 remained chaos barely contained. White wolf form she shifted into as easily as breathing. Scout commander who could infiltrate and return with intelligence before anyone noticed. Marcus at 55 felt every year in joints, but none in heart. The frozen king was distant memory. Gray dominated his hair, new scars from decade of protecting territory. But eyes that had been dead blazed with purpose. The war room meeting happened on Tuesday in March. Henrik called emergency session, face grim. Council assembled quickly. Marcus arrived to find his 3 children already present. No longer wards requiring protection, warriors preparing for battle. Henrik's briefing was concise and devastating. Malcolm Thornridge had mobilized forces from 4 southern territories, 600 trained fighters plus support, moving north in coordinated formations suggesting months of planning. Target was obvious: Blackwood Palace, the AlphaKing, the 3 prophecy children Malcolm had failed to eliminate 15 years ago. Marcus absorbed this with calm of someone who'd been expecting it. The only surprise was Malcolm waited this long. 15 years since Silverbrook. Plenty of time to realize his massacre failed. The question wasn't why. It was how they'd defend against force 3 times larger than Garrison. Riley studied maps with intensity Marcus recognized from childhood. Cole's fingers moved across tablet running calculations. Quinn stood perfectly still, white wolf patience in human form. Henrik continued with brutal honesty. Palace defenses were formidable but not infinite. 600 attackers against 200 defenders meant 3-to-1 odds. Allied packs had promised reinforcements, 50 warriors within 2 days. That improved odds to 600 versus 250. Still bad, less hopeless. Lord Harrington raised the question everyone thought. Perhaps negotiation was possible. Perhaps Malcolm could be reasoned with. Marcus's response came flat. Malcolm had orchestrated murder of 47 families 15 years ago. Reasoning with that kind of paranoia was futile. This ended in victory or death. Malcolm had requested parley, traditional courtesy, meet on neutral ground, discuss terms. Everyone knew it was theater. But refusing suggested cowardice. Riley objected. Sending AlphaKing to meet would-be murderer seemed tactically unsound. What if it was trap? Marcus appreciated concern, but decision was made. He'd survive 40 years of threats by not hiding from danger. Meeting Malcolm directly sent message. The AlphaKing wasn't afraid. The parley location was neutral territory 20 miles south, open ground visible from all angles. Marcus rode out with Henrik and 10 guards. Riley argued, wanted to accompany, couldn't protect him if not present. Marcus was firm. She protected Palace and brothers. That was her duty. His was facing Malcolm. The ride took 3 hours. Marcus used time to center himself. Malcolm wanted to discuss terms. Marcus wanted to look his children's would-be murderer in eye and promise his destruction. Henrik rode beside him. Marcus was calmer than expected, facing 600 enemies and childhood friend turned traitor. Marcus explained stress came from uncertainty. This situation held none. Malcolm would demand abdication. Marcus would refuse. War would commence. Simple, almost relaxing in inevitability. Henrik's counter was pragmatic. Nothing about war was relaxing. People would die. Good people. The children might die. Marcus himself might die. The honesty came easily, because for 15 years, Marcus had been waiting for this. Knowing Malcolm was threat, but unable to act. Now Malcolm had declared himself openly. That clarity was relief. Malcolm's camp appeared, 50 fighters visible. Malcolm stood at center, confident and relaxed, 47 years old. Wait, Marcus calculated. Malcolm was 37 15 years ago. Should be 52 now. Handsome still, charismatic, dangerous because likable. Marcus dismounted. Henrik and guards formed protective circle. Malcolm approached alone. 2 alpha-blooded men facing each other. Old friends, current enemies. Malcolm spoke first, reasonable tone. This didn't have to end in bloodshed. Marcus could abdicate, take adopted family leave territories. Malcolm would grant safe passage. Marcus listened until Malcolm finished, then delivered response with Arctic precision. No, never. Not while he breathed. Malcolm had murdered 47 families. That crime demanded justice. The only terms Marcus would accept were Malcolm's unconditional surrender. Malcolm's facade cracked. He'd done what was necessary. The prophecy threatened everything their families built. 3 orphans weren't worth destabilizing territory. Marcus's attachment blinded him. The words confirmed what Marcus knew. Malcolm saw children as chess pieces. Riley, Cole, and Quinn were real people to Marcus. That fundamental difference made compromise impossible. Marcus stated reality plainly. Malcolm would never touch his children. This war ended with Malcolm's death or exile. Those were only acceptable outcomes. Malcolm's expression hardened. Fine. If Marcus wanted war, he'd get war. 600 warriors. Marcus had 200. The mathematics were clear. Marcus felt cold smile touch lips. Mathematics didn't account for motivation. Marcus fought to protect family. Malcolm fought for power and fear. Not equivalent motivations. Malcolm's parting words carried threat and promise. At dawn then, may strongest Alpha claim victory. Henrik moved to Marcus's side as they mounted. That went exactly as expected. War was certain, Marcus confirmed. War was always certain. This meeting was formality. When this ended, council would see who was right. They rode north in silence. The palace appeared as sunset-painted mountains, gold and crimson. Home, fortress, worth defending with everything. Riley met him in courtyard. Report. Malcolm refused reasonable terms. They'd attack at dawn. Standard siege tactics expected. Cole's modifications would prove their value. Everyone should rest. Tomorrow would be brutal. Cole appeared from command center. He'd run final simulations. Best outcome involved 40% casualties. Worst case was total annihilation. The odds were terrible. Marcus absorbed this without flinching. Then they'd fight harder than simulations predicted. Numbers weren't destiny. Quinn joined them, White Wolf shimmering into human. She'd been scouting, confirming troop positions. 600 was accurate, well-armed, well-trained, also overconfident. Good. Overconfidence created mistakes. Marcus gathered his 3 children close. Tomorrow they fought for everything. Palace, territory, family, each other. No holding back. Riley's question came quiet. What if they lost? What if Malcolm won and they died? Marcus met her eyes steadily. Then they died, protecting what mattered. But he didn't plan on dying, planned on winning. That was the only acceptable outcome. Cole's observation was analytical. Statistical probability suggested at least one of them wouldn't survive. Marcus pulled him closer. Statistics measured past patterns. Tomorrow would establish new patterns. They were going to defy odds through skill and strength of family bonds. Quinn pressed against Marcus's other side. She didn't want to lose anyone. They'd lost too many already. Marcus held all 3. They wouldn't lose each other. That was promise and prayer. Whatever came, they faced it together. Night passed in final preparations. Weapons distributed. Positions reinforced. Warriors briefed. Everything anticipated had been anticipated. The rest was chaos and courage. Marcus found himself unable to sleep, visiting each position and offering encouragement. Warriors who'd served decades preparing to risk everything because their AlphaKing asked it. Henrik found him on Eastern Wall at 3 a.m. Marcus had given these people everything. If they died tomorrow, it would be serving king worth dying for. Marcus appreciated sentiment, but couldn't accept comfort. They shouldn't have to die for him. Henrik's counter was firm. Malcolm started this 15 years ago. Everything since was Malcolm's consequences catching up. Warriors below chose to fight because they believed in Marcus's rule. That was worth defending. Dawn came cold and gray. Malcolm's army appeared exactly as predicted. 600 strong, organized into battalions. Malcolm had spent years preparing this force. Riley stood at main gate, 100 palace guards behind her in perfect formation. 21 years old, war markings making her eyes seem to glow. Commanding warriors who'd fought before she was born. They followed without hesitation because she'd earned loyalty through service. Cole monitored from command center, coordinating defensive systems designed for this scenario. Traps, barricades, fallback positions. Every advantage architecture could provide. Quinn in White Wolf form patrolled perimeter, ready to relay movements and exploit vulnerabilities. Fastest wolf Marcus had ever seen. Marcus took position on Central Tower, overseeing defensive structure. The AlphaKing's place was directing strategy initially. That would change when battle reached critical point. Malcolm's army reached range and stopped. Malcolm rode forward, voice amplified. Last chance to surrender. Avoid bloodshed, except inevitable. Marcus's response came through amplification. Malcolm Thornridge was charged with 47 counts of murder, conspiracy, and treason. Surrender now and face justice. Continue and die on this field. Malcolm's laughter echoed. So be it. He signaled commanders. The army surged forward. The battle began with overwhelming force hitting Eastern Gate. Malcolm's strategy was straightforward. Concentrate power on weakest point, break through quickly. Except Cole had reinforced Eastern Gate specifically because it was obvious target, steel reinforced doors backed by 3 defensive layers. Malcolm's warriors hit gate expecting breakthrough, found killing field. Riley's guards held with disciplined precision, not trying to stop 600, just delay them, channel them, force them into positions where defenders' advantages multiplied. First wave broke without breaching gate, 15 enemy down, 3 defenders wounded. Ratio that would lose long-term, but one opening engagement. Second wave came harder. Battering ram coordinated assault. The gate shuddered, hinges screamed, but held. Riley repositioned, anticipating breach. Gate fell on 4th ram impact. Malcolm's warriors poured through, expecting scattered resistance. Found Riley's tactical formation. Guard units positioned to maximize defensive advantage. Enemy advance slowed, stopped, began taking catastrophic casualties. Marcus watched from Tower Pride, warring with fear. Riley was brilliant. Her strategy worked beyond projections, but sheer numbers remained insurmountable. Cole's voice crackled over comms. Time to spring trap 2. On Marcus's signal, Marcus surveyed battlefield timing perfectly. Enemy forces committed to courtyard. Concentrated. Now. Cole triggered hidden defenses. Courtyard floor portions collapsed into pit traps. Net systems deployed from concealed positions. 30 warriors down or captured in seconds. Malcolm's forces retreated, reorganizing. First assault failed spectacularly, but 600 could afford failures. 200 couldn't. Next 3 hours blurred into cyclical violence. Attack, defense, retreat, regroup. Casualties mounted asymmetrically. Marcus lost 7 guards. Malcolm lost 43. The ratio was unsustainable. Afternoon brought turning point. Malcolm deployed reserve force, 100 fresh fighters hitting exhausted defenders. Riley's forces began to buckle. Positions that held all morning started falling. Then came nightmare fuel. 20 massive wolves emerged from Malcolm's rear lines, 50% larger than normal, eyes glowing faintly red, movement patterns wrong, enhanced rogues, experimental abominations Malcolm had been developing. Riley's voice cracked over comms. "Dad, these new ones, they're not normal. They're not stopping when injured." Marcus's blood ran cold. Malcolm had crossed lines warfare normally respected. Enhanced soldiers were illegal under pack law. Unpredictable, uncontrollable. The enhanced rogues crashed into defensive positions like battering rams. Regular fighters scattered. Even experienced warriors hesitated. Quinn engaged one in white wolf form. Her speed advantage meant nothing when enhanced rogue absorbed damage and kept attacking. She barely dodged strike that would have decapitated her. Marcus made the call. All units fall back to secondary positions. They couldn't fight enhanced soldiers conventionally. Needed Cole's countermeasures. The withdrawal was organized cow. Guards retreating under cover while enhanced rogues pressed advantage. But they made secondary positions where Cole's defenses waited. Enhanced rogues followed blindly into kill zones. Enhanced bodies, non-enhanced brains. They fell into traps, triggered nets, walked into concentrated fire. Within 10 minutes, all 20 neutralized. But the cost was evident. 15 more defenders down. Morale shaken. Malcolm's willingness to use enhanced soldiers revealed desperation. Riley's assessment came grim. If Malcolm had more of those, they'd lose. Marcus hoped they'd seen all of them. Quinn's urgent communication changed everything. Malcolm's forces were circling toward rear entrance where non-combatants sheltered. Someone needed to reinforce immediately. Marcus made decision instantly. He was going. Henrik would maintain command. Riley would hold main gate. Cole would continue coordinating. Quinn and Marcus would handle the rear assault. Henrik began objecting, but Marcus was already moving. Some situations required AlphaKing's personal intervention. Rear entrance was chaos. 20 of Malcolm's warriors had broken through, advancing on shelter building. Palace guards fought desperately, but were being overwhelmed. Marcus shifted mid-run wolf form, erupting. The AlphaKing's wolf was massive, gray-furred, radiating power that made warriors hesitate. He hit enemy formation like natural disaster. Quinn's white wolf joined heartbeats later. Smaller but faster, targeting vulnerable points while Marcus drew attention. The battle was brutal. Marcus took down 6 warriors in first 30 seconds, but sustained injuries that would have killed younger wolves. Deep gashes along ribs, broken bone in left foreleg, bite wounds bleeding freely. He ignored pain, focusing on keeping enemies from shelter. Quinn fought with fearless intensity. No defensive posturing, pure aggressive assault, capitalizing on speed. She was everywhere, impossible to pin down. Between them they held. Enemy assault broke. Surviving warriors retreated. Marcus shifted back to human, immediately aware of how badly he was hurt. Vision graying, breathing difficult, several ribs broken, extensive blood loss. Henrik appeared with medical support. Marcus needed immediate treatment. Was barely standing. Had to pull back or wounds would kill him before Malcolm did. Marcus refused. Still functional, still needed. Battle wasn't over. Quinn shifted beside him, also wounded, but less severely. If Papa Marcus was fighting, so was she. They'd started this together 15 years ago. They'd finish it together now. Henrik looked between them, seeing stubborn determination. Fine, but taking squad support and moving carefully. Clear, clear. Marcus accepted because Henrik was right. Pride couldn't overcome physiology. Communication from Cole changed everything. Malcolm had committed final reserves. Everything Malcolm had was on battlefield now. If they could break this assault, they won. But there was problem. Malcolm himself was moving toward Eastern Gate with 50 elite guards, coming for Riley specifically. Cole's model suggested she couldn't hold against that force. Marcus's decision was instantaneous. He was going. Henrik would manage overall defense. Cole and Quinn would protect civilians. Marcus would handle Malcolm personally. Eastern Gate was chaos. Riley and remaining guards fought desperately against Malcolm's elite force. She was magnificent, cutting through enemies with precision born of 15 years training. But 50 against 20 meant outcome was inevitable. Her guards fell one by one. Marcus arrived as Riley went down. Sword knocked away, enemy blade descending for killing blow. Marcus threw himself between them, taking strike on shoulder. New wound on existing injuries. Pain exploding. But Riley was alive. That was all that mattered. Marcus shifted partially, wolf strength flooding human body. Ripped enemy warrior apart. Turned to next threat. The howl from the west split the battlefield. Not Malcolm's forces, not palace defenders. Something else. 50 wolves appeared on ridgeline. Fresh troops. Henrik's voice carried shock and relief. Reinforcements from western territories. Early. And they brought someone. Older wolf led the pack. Silver-white fur, battle-scarred, moving with authority. She shifted to human at battlefield's edge. Woman in 60s, fierce eyes. Her voice carried across carnage. I am Catherine Winters, former Luna of Eastern Pack. Marcus Blackwood showed my daughter's memory honor by protecting 3 orphans when easier path was turning away. I stand with him. Marcus's mind reeled. Catherine, Sarah's mother. They'd lost contact after Sarah's death. She'd withdrawn to Eastern territories. He'd thought her too old for warfare. Apparently not. Catherine's warriors hit Malcolm's forces from flank. Fresh troops against exhausted fighters. The tide shifted immediately. Enemy formations suddenly trapped between 2 forces. Malcolm's expression went from confident to desperate. This wasn't supposed to happen. Someone had miscalculated. Henrik's hand on Marcus's shoulder carried gratitude. Catherine just saved them. Marcus watched his late mate's mother tear through enemy ranks with efficiency that reminded him painfully of Sarah. Family showed up when it mattered. Even family you'd lost touch with. Malcolm stood at gate watching with cold satisfaction that shifted to alarm. Finally, AlphaKing wounded and weakening. But now reinforcements complicated everything. The challenge came formal. Malcolm Thornridge challenged Marcus Blackwood for AlphaKing position. Single combat, Victor claimed all. Marcus accepted, voice steady despite failing body. Winner took everything. Loser died. Simple. The way it should have been 15 years ago. Armies pulled back. Ancient tradition dictated challenges between alpha-blooded wolves were sacred. No interference. Riley tried to object. Marcus was wounded. This wasn't fair. Marcus silenced her with gesture. Fair didn't matter. This was ending now. Marcus and Malcolm faced each other in cleared space. Both shifted to wolf form simultaneously. Gray versus black. Experience versus youth. Wounded king versus fresh challenger. They circled, assessing each other. Malcolm's confidence was palpable. Marcus was bleeding, limping, clearly damaged. Victory seemed certain. Malcolm lunged first, going for throat. Marcus sidestepped despite injuries, using Malcolm's momentum against him. Technique over strength. He'd been fighting 30 years. Knew how to win when outmatched. The battle raged for endless minutes. Marcus taking hits he couldn't avoid. Dealing damage despite wounds. Fighting with desperate intensity of someone protecting everything he loved. Malcolm got throat hold. Marcus was weakening. Bleeding out. This was the end. Malcolm's growl suggested triumph. Riley's scream cut through Marcus's fading consciousness. Dad, the word. She'd never used it before. Always Marcus or Papa Marcus. Never Dad. The simple title carried weight that shattered something inside him. Alpha power erupted. Pure dominance from somewhere deeper than physical strength. Marcus threw Malcolm off with force that defied his injuries. Lunged for Malcolm's throat. Closed jaws on vulnerable flesh. Kill shot. Available. Easy. Marcus Ho. Well, CCU Marcus held position. Didn't close jaws, didn't finish it. Just held Malcolm pinned bleeding, but alive. The Alpha King's mercy was deliberate, witnessed by both armies. Marcus shifted back to human, body failing, but voice steady. The fight was over. Malcolm lost. But he wasn't dying today. He was going into exile, leaving territories, never returning. That was mercy Malcolm hadn't shown children's parents. But it was mercy Marcus chose anyway. Malcolm shifted to human, shocked. Why? Why spare him after everything? Marcus's response came with children watching. Because they needed to see strength wasn't about killing defeated enemies. It was about choosing mercy even when vengeance was justified. Malcolm's crimes deserved death, but creating more death wouldn't heal anyone. Riley, Cole, and Quinn watched their father spare the man who'd murdered their parents. The lesson was clear. They could be better than enemies, could break cycles of violence, could choose compassion even when it hurt. Malcolm crawled away, broken beyond physical. Guards took him into custody. Southern Territory's forces scattered. Marcus collapsed. Adrenaline evaporated, wounds taking their due. His children surrounded him, immediately calling for help, trying to stop bleeding. Henrik arrived with healers already working to stabilize. Injuries were severe, but survivable. Barely. Marcus would live, would recover, but he'd push past reasonable limits. Marcus looked at 3 children through dimming vision. They'd won, survived, were still alive. That was victory. Riley gripped his hand, tears streaming. He'd saved her again, 15 years ago from ruins, today from death, always there when they needed him. Marcus squeezed weakly. That was what fathers did. Showed up, protected, loved, even when it cost everything. Consciousness faded, but he faded knowing family was safe. The prophecy had been about this moment, not destruction, rebirth. 3 children from ashes had indeed changed him, made everything worth protecting. He let darkness take him, trusting they'd be there when he woke. His family, chosen, perfect, everything. 3 months of healing felt like years. Marcus's injuries had pushed his 55-year-old body past reasonable limits. Broken ribs, punctured lung, extensive blood loss. Healers said he'd been minutes from death when Henrik got him to medical station. 3 minutes closer and he wouldn't have woken up. But he did wake. 2 days post-battle consciousness, returning slowly to find Riley sleeping in chair beside his bed. Cole at his other side, tablet dimmed but still running security feeds. Quinn in wolf form curled at foot of bed, all 3 keeping vigil. His movement woke them. Riley's face transformed from exhausted worry to overwhelming relief. "You're awake. Thank God." Marcus tried to speak, throat too dry. Cole pressed water to lips while Quinn shifted to human and threw herself onto bed in careful hug, avoiding injuries. Papa Marcus lived. She'd been so scared. He held all 3 as well as broken body aloud. Made promises he'd be fine. Would recover. Wasn't leaving them. Recovery was slow. Physical therapy reminded him body was 55 despite mind thinking 30. Exercises exhausted him. Progress measured in stairs climbed and distance walked. Children visited constantly. Riley bringing reports on territory management she was handling in his absence. Cole showing security improvements he had implemented. Quinn just sitting with him, presence more healing than medicine. Henrik managed interim governance with council support. Malcolm's defeat shattered Southern Territory's resistance. Surviving lords swore allegiance to Blackwood rule. Malcolm himself had been exiled under armed escort, marked as traitor, sent into human lands, where pack law no longer protected him. Living death for Wolf. Marcus's mercy had been crueler than execution. Catherine had stayed 2 weeks helping stabilize transition and reconnecting with Marcus over shared grief for Sarah. Conversations were difficult but necessary. 2 people who'd loved the same woman finding peace together. She left promising regular visits. Family maintained relationships despite distance. 6 months post-battle brought ceremony everyone anticipated. Formal recognition of Riley, Cole, and Quinn as official heirs to Northern Territories. Not wards, not adopted children with ambiguous status. Heirs, princes and princess with full royal authority. Great hall filled with every pack leader, every council member, every important figure. Marcus stood at throne, first time standing for full ceremony since injuries. Age and battle damage left permanent marks, but he was here. Present for moment, his children claimed birthright. Riley knelt first. 21 years old, a captain of guard warrior proven in combat. Marcus placed hands on her shoulders. Riley Blackwood, you survived impossible odds at 6 years old. Protected siblings through darkest night. Grew into finest warrior and leader I've known. Today I formally recognize you as crown princess and my chosen heir. When my time ends, you will rule these territories with courage and compassion you've shown since the day I found you. The crown was simple, silver circlet with 3 interlocking circles. Unity their family represented. Riley stood crown on head, meeting Marcus's eyes. Thank you for everything, for seeing worth in 3 orphans when the world saw only tragedy. Marcus's throat tightened. The world was wrong. You 3 were never tragedy. You were greatest gift I never knew I needed. Cole knelt next, 19 years old tactical genius who'd saved kingdom through brilliant strategy. Cole Blackwood, Prince, Chief Strategist, the mind that protects the realm. Your wisdom will guide your sister's rule and strengthen kingdom for generations. Quinn last, 17 years old, white wolf wild spirit who'd brought joy back. Princess, Scout Commander, the prophecy child who proved destiny could be shaped by choice rather than predetermined by ancient texts. Your courage inspires us all. Ceremony concluded with traditional pack howl. Every wolf shifted and sang an acknowledgement of new heirs. The sound raised goosebumps. This was pack. This was family. This was what he'd built from 3 orphans and frozen heart. Celebration afterward was genuine. Warriors toasting Riley. Council members who doubted Marcus 15 years ago, now congratulating him. Even Lord Harrington admitted he'd been wrong. Those 3 children had become kingdom's greatest asset. Marcus found himself on observation tower as party continued below. Same view, same mountains, same kingdom. But everything felt different, because he was different. The man who'd stood here 15 years ago barely existed anymore. Henrik joined him with 2 whiskeys. To survival, to victory, to family. They drank in comfortable silence. Finally, Marcus spoke what he'd been processing. I'm stepping down. Henrik didn't seem surprised. When soon, maybe a year, Riley's ready, more than ready, and I'm tired. 55 feels like 70. Want to rest while I can still enjoy it. Sarah would be proud of you, of them, of everything you built after she died. Marcus hoped so, because truth was, he'd been ready to give up 15 years ago. Ready to be frozen king forever existing without living. 3 orphans in ruins had saved him from that fate, given him reasons to thaw, to feel, to love despite risk. The years had been hard, wonderful, terrifying, perfect. Everything parenthood should be. 10 years later, Marcus at 65 walked through Blackwood Palace Gardens with slow, careful steps of someone whose body reminded him daily he'd lived hard. Retired officially for 9 years. Riley had taken throne at 22 after a year of joint rule. Title Alpha Queen required new precedent. First non-bloodline ruler, first woman, first leader risen from orphan to royal through merit. Kingdom flourished under her leadership. Expanded territory, strengthened alliances, proved chosen family could build legacy as powerful as blood dynasties. Children's laughter drew Marcus to Garden Center. 5 small forms chasing each other. Riley's 2 children, Elena's 7 named for Sarah, and Thomas, 5 named for Riley's birth father. Cole's adopted daughter, Chen 4. Quinn's twin boys, Hunter and Storm 3. Next generation. Marcus's grandchildren, though no blood connected them. 5 reasons fighting had been worth it. 5 proofs family transcended biology. Elena spotted him first. Grandpa, tell us the story about the 3 kids Marcus settled on bench joints protesting. Story again. He'd told it dozen times. Children clustered with universal enthusiasm demanding familiar tales. Please, we love that story. Riley appeared from Palace now 31, and every inch the Alpha Queen, wearing authority like she'd been born to it. Need me to rescue you? Marcus waved her off. He could handle story time. Riley departed to endless council meetings. The responsibilities Marcus no longer carried. Retirement was glorious. He began tale they all loved. Once upon a time, There was a king who forgot how to be human. He was strong and powerful and very, very sad, lost and cold, frozen inside where it mattered. Then one winter day he found 3 children in ruins of village. The telling took 30 minutes. Marcus did all the voices, terrible as always, which made children giggle. Brave young girl protecting siblings. Quiet, smart boy who saw everything. Tiny baby who grew into white wolf. Frozen king who learned to love again. Elena, wise beyond years, asked questions she always asked. Did the king stay frozen, or did children fix him? Marcus considered carefully. He wanted to say children fixed him, but that wasn't quite right. They didn't fix him. They gave him reasons to fix himself, showed him life was worth living even after terrible loss, taught him family wasn't about blood. It was about who you'd fight for, who you'd die for, who made you whole. Other children had gotten distracted chasing butterflies, but Elena remained studying her grandfather's face. You were the king, right? The frozen one. Marcus had tried to keep story abstract, but the girl was too smart. Yes, he'd been frozen king, very sad, and after losing someone he loved. Then 3 special children changed everything, and Mama was one of them. The brave girl. Your mama was bravest person I'd ever known. From 6 years old to now. Courage never faded, just grew stronger. Elena hugged him spontaneously. I'm glad the children unfroze you, Grandpa. Otherwise I wouldn't exist. Marcus held his granddaughter and felt his heart, that organ frozen for 7 years, and slowly thawed over 15 more, swell with joy that still surprised him after 25 years. She was right. Without Riley, Cole, and Quinn, none of this existed. No family, no grandchildren, no legacy worth leaving. Cole approached with Chen in tow, his daughter chattering about complicated scientific concept. Cole at 29 had become exactly what Marcus predicted, brilliant strategist whose mind protected kingdom more effectively than armies. Quinn arrived last with twin terrors, both boys showing early signs of mother's wild nature and complete lack of fear. Quinn at 27 still scouted sometimes, despite being married with children. Said retirement didn't suit her personality. Marcus worried constantly, but had learned to accept Quinn would be Quinn regardless. They gathered in garden as afternoon light painted everything gold. 4 generations of Blackwood family. Marcus, his 3 children, their 5 children, connected not by blood, but by choice, by love, by decision. One frozen king had made 25 years ago. Henrik appeared from palace, now 83, and moving slowly but still sharp. The old beta had been there for everything. Witnessed Marcus's transformation from frozen king to loving father. He settled on bench beside Marcus with groan of old joints. Hell of a journey, wasn't it? Marcus surveyed his family. Riley laughing at something Cole said. Quinn preventing twins from climbing dangerous tree. 5 grandchildren playing in garden where he'd once walked alone, ice-locked and miserable. 25 years from finding 3 orphans to this moment. Hell of a journey indeed. Riley called everyone for family dinner. Children cheered and raced toward palace. Adults followed at more sedate pace. Marcus moved to stand, but Riley appeared at his side, offering arm for support. Let me help, Dad. The title still made him emotional after all these years. She'd called him Marcus for so long. Then Papa Marcus, finally just Dad when she turned 16. The word carried weight he'd never take for granted. They walked together toward palace. Riley shortened stride to match his slower pace. Her voice came quiet. Do you have any regrets about taking us in? Derailing your whole life, Marcus stopped needing her to see his face when he answered. Every moment I had with you 3 was gift. The day I found you in those ruins was the day my life started making sense again. Before that, I was surviving. After that, I was living. No regrets. Not one. Only gratitude. Riley's eyes filled with tears she refused to shed. We saved each other then. They did. And continued saving each other every day. That's what family meant. Showing up. Being present. Choosing love, even when terrifying. Dinner was chaos. 5 children demanding attention. Adults managing conversations across multiple topics. Food spilling. Laughter ringing through halls that once knew only silence. Perfect chaos. The kind Marcus had learned to cherish. After children were settled for night, adults remained at table. Riley discussing territory management, Cole presenting security updates, Quinn describing upcoming diplomatic mission, the work of governance continuing across generations. Marcus listened more than contributed these days. His time for leadership had passed. Now he advised when asked and stayed quiet otherwise. Let next generation make decisions, make mistakes, build their own legacy. But Riley still sought his opinion on major decisions. This one was significant. Council had proposed recognizing non-bloodline adoption as legitimate path to royal succession, making official what Marcus established through precedent, opening throne to anyone who proved themselves worthy regardless of birth. Marcus's response came without hesitation. It was right decision. Best leaders weren't always born to leadership, sometimes forged through adversity and choice. His 3 children proved that truth. So would their children, and generations after. Conversation continued late. Eventually people drifted to quarters. Marcus remained in informal dining rooms, same space where he'd shared awkward breakfasts with 3 traumatized children 25 years ago. The memories were vivid. Riley's wariness, Cole's silence, Quinn's innocent chaos. They'd come so far, all 4 of them. From broken pieces to complete picture, from tragedy to triumph, from winter's ashes to kingdom reborn. The prophecy had been right after all. 3 children from winter's destruction had changed everything. Not through violence or conquest, through love, through family, through proving mercy was stronger than vengeance, and chosen bonds stronger than blood. Marcus stood slowly, joints protesting as always. Time for sleep. Tomorrow would bring new day, new grandchildren adventures, new reasons to be grateful he'd made choice to care again after 7 years of frozen isolation. He paused in doorway, looking back at table. For a moment he could see them. 6-year-old Riley with fierce determination, 4-year-old Cole with quiet intensity, 2-year-old Quinn with innocent trust. Ghosts of who they'd been, foundation for who they'd become. Thank you, he whispered to empty room, to 3 children who'd saved broken king, to Sarah who'd taught him how to love, to Henrik who'd stood by him through everything, to the universe or fate or whatever force that led him to Silverbrook that winter day. Thank you. The palace settled into night quiet, hundreds sleeping safely under protection of walls Marcus had defended for decades and Riley now guarded. Kingdom was secure, family was thriving, legacy was established. Marcus Blackwood, former Frozen King, retired alpha father and grandfather, and living proof that human heart could survive, even deepest winter, went to bed surrounded by love. That was victory. Nothing else mattered. The prophecy was complete. The kingdom had been reborn, and it started with 3 words he'd spoken 25 years ago to 3 orphans in ruins. You stay together. They had. Always together. That was the lesson. That was the legacy. That was everything.